Spanish Fork. Welcome back to our weekly river update. It's your favorite river duo, Nick and Seth. It's almost like Regis and Kelly.
Almost.
One day.
Almost.
Anyway, I'm the public information officer for the city. Seth is our city manager. And we're excited to give you, is this our last update?
I think this will be our last update, Nick.
Okay.
Unless people clamor for more, which I'm sure they're not. This probably is our last.
Well, this is our last weekend update for the Spanish Fork River. So, are we done? Is it over?
That is a great question, and you know me well. Never can I give a simple answer. So, yes and no. We believe, based on some of the things we'll talk about here and show in just a minute, we're pretty comfortable in saying that we're not worried about snowmelt causing a river flood event for us at this point. There still are a couple of things that we have to be vigilant of, especially while we have the high water, namely erosion, debris, and a rain event, which we saw on Mother's Day. Those things could still bring the high water up higher quicker, but as far as snowmelt, we're done. There just isn't enough volume of snow up in the mountains to produce a flood event at this point.
So I have those graphs.
Yeah, but before we do that, anytime we talk about is it over and we have some kind of excitement, because this is exciting stuff, and I think as a community we should be super pleased, super happy. Even though I mentioned erosion, debris, and rain events, probably the most important and scary thing that we have to talk about is just river safety. The water is still high, it's still fast, it's still very cold, and so we've got to stay out of the water. And if we don't stay out of the water, even for another couple of weeks, I think we'll still find ourselves in circumstances that are dangerous and maybe even tragic. And all of the good work, all of the hard work and effort will be overshadowed by tragedy. So our message has to stay strong, especially knowing that today school is out. Kids are excited about the summer, the weather is finally beautiful, and maybe the water's refreshing, but stay away. Parents, keep your kids out. Kids, don't be dumb. Stay out of the water.
Okay. I think that's the most important message too.
Yeah.
But we do have some other messages, so we'll get to those. Here's our snowpack graph. This is the high elevation snowpack. I think you've seen this graph before. Last week we had about 17 inches of snowpack at the high elevations, and now we're down to just about 8 inches. And it's only 8 inches above 8,900 feet, which there aren't a lot of. It's not a lot of ground.
Yep.
There's not a lot of snow.
Yeah, I think if you were to go up into the high mountains, you would probably be shocked at how much snow there is. But as you just said, there just isn't the volume of it. And so this graph really shows us that because the low elevation graph is at 0, we just don't have the volume. So there's some snow to still melt, and that will mean our river will stay flowing higher than its summer values, right? I think it'll be until July before we get down to the 100, 200 cubic feet per second range.
So let's look at the predictions, and this is the prediction and the actual flows since kind of mid-April.
Yep.
So you can see that first high levels where we deployed sandbags and got ready. Then we had a little cool down, and then our highest peaks that were just 2 weeks ago, Mother's Day, and now the forecast is steady and downward, almost back to normal, which is somewhere between 500 and 700 cubic feet per second.
Normal? No, I think normal this time of year probably is 200, maybe 300 cubic feet per second. Yeah, in terms of historical averages. So this graph is really special to me because I think it highlights the miracle that we've experienced. And to have high water starting back on this graph at what you see is April 17th, to have high water and to really get into high water something above 1,000 cubic feet per second as early as April 28th, April 27th, somewhere in that range. And to be above 1,000 cubic feet per second through May and into June means that we've experienced what you and I might describe as a 7 or 8 week melt, and that is the miracle of this experience.
So I have that kind of, you can see on the snowpack graph, this one that's
Yeah.
different. That, yeah, the high that started to melt
Yeah,
kind of mid-April,
yeah, call it April 10th. Yep.
and we still have a little bit left,
Yep.
today, and that's not what happened in the flood year of 1983, right? 40 years ago.
Yeah, if you want to just highlight the 83 and 84 lines there, you can see the trajectory of those two melts, and they're pretty straight. And then you look at the green line that is 2023, and you can see it's got a smaller slope, less severe slope. That's the story, right? You take everything that we have done as a community in terms of working in the river, and then put on top of that weather created a melt that is probably 7 or 8 weeks long. That's all of that adds up to the success that we're celebrating, at this moment.
Yeah, I don't think we could have asked for anything better,
Nope.
right?
Nope, because if back in April and May, when we had that first run up and the temperatures were 70, I think we had an 85. If we would have had 2 more 80s and a 90, let's say April 3rd, 4th, and 5th were 85, 87, and then we had a 92, then I think our story is significantly different, and we would have had really, really high water in those early days of May. And all it would have taken was 2 or 3 more hot days, and you'd have had that water melting, you'd have had the momentum of that water melting, you'd have had the low, the mid, and the high level snow coming down. And all 3 of those on top of each other creates, a flow of 4,000 cubic feet per second. And that's a different story. But our story is we had that 84, 85 degree day, 2 or 3 of those, and then we went to 60s and 50s, and that just slowed everything down. And the best way I could describe it is, if you're driving a car and you kind of feather the gas pedal, that's what Mother Nature did for us. She feathered it every once in a while, gave us some heat, then cooled it off, and it just kept the melt going, but in a very measured and steady pace rather than all at once.
So we've talked that these are our tools that we look at, and as far as what is our flood risk.
Yeah.
So with the snowpack tool that we've seen, this prediction tool, and then this graph, which is another flow prediction
Yep.
that takes historical melts and kind of gives us a percentage.
Yep.
Last time we showed this graph, I think the high said 2,300
Yep. And
CFS, and now it's not going to get, according to this forecast, above 1,600.
Yep, and this is just like a 10-day forecast, and of course it's really accurate for today, tomorrow, and the next few days. But if we were to pull up last week's graph, this is still trending really close to what it said. It's just a week out, right? And so we're seeing the river at about 1,400 cubic feet per second right now, and we'll expect that it will just slowly go down, but you can see here, this is predicting to have at least 300 or 400 cubic feet per second into July. So that'll be great, in terms of being able to see the river be a viable river. Want to stay out of it as long as it's dirty and cold.
So maybe into June, maybe even July before we can recreate again,
yeah,
right?
definitely watch through June. Yeah, I would expect through the month of June.
Okay. So we're out of the snowpack. There's still some snow. It's going to come down. We're not worried about it overflowing any banks. In fact, we're going to start taking sandbags down.
Yep.
So I want to get to the sandbag plan, but let's go back to what you said. The things we're worried about now are rain,
Yep.
which who knows?
Well,
what's
we
gonna
saw on
happen
Mother's Day that the river went up, I want to say it was about 800 cubic feet per second through Mother's Day as it rained up in the mountains, and that water then flows down, trickles into the rivers, right, and then swells up. And that set the stage for a really high Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday after Mother's Day, and that was all influenced by rain. So if we have a really big rain event tomorrow, then you'll see the river go from 1,400 cubic feet per second probably up north of 2,000 again. We don't see that in the 10-day forecast, and we know the river is going to continue to go down. So there's a high level of confidence that in the neighborhoods where we have sandbags and some of the higher areas where we've put sandbags, we don't need them anymore, such as Canyon View Park and around the golf course. There are some lower lying areas on some trails and a few places where we'll probably keep those sandbags out for a few more weeks, just because they keep, if we do have a rain event or some kind of erosion debris that dams up the river, then it'll keep it off the trail in a few places where we'd like to keep those open.
So debris and erosion, those are the things we're going to continue to monitor. We pulled a big piece of debris out just on Tuesday this week.
Yeah, this is a wonderful picture, and you're looking across the river right now, and right at the foreground of this picture is a root ball. So that tree laid down into the river, and there probably wasn't somebody there to yell timber, and so we don't know if it made a sound when it fell, but we know that it laid down across the river. And if you look to the right of the image, you can see that the river is a foot or so higher, and then it can come over the tree, right? And so that's a dam, and all of a sudden backstream the river's a foot higher than it was. Right. So it took our crews and some county crews 2 big pieces of equipment in a couple of hours to get that big old tree out. And we've got some of the best river rodeo guys in the state, and they were able to get that out. And big smiles on their faces. You can't see this in the picture, but they were pretty happy, pleased with themselves. We're pleased, of course. But that is something that can continue to happen. There's a lot of trees that have had the ground underneath them eroded, and so we're watching them, and we're seeing them lean a little bit more every day, and we know they'll probably come out, and that's just the nature of how the river and high water works.
So our crews continue to monitor and look at that and find debris, chase down debris, and pull it out.
Yep.
The other thing they're doing is monitoring for erosion,
Yep.
right? Photos and drone footage that we're getting.
Yep.
And here's a couple images. Tell us about these, Seth.
These are just some pictorial examples of what erosion can look like, and these are some places here in town along the trail. Probably the biggest story of erosion and damage to the river channels are up in the mountain, in the canyon, and we've experienced a lot of erosion in areas that have washed out some of our service roads and utility areas that we have some of our stuff. So that's probably the bigger story in terms of erosion, and we've been able to work through some of those and manage them. But we're watching for that. Erosion is always the biggest story about high water.
And it's not just high water, but the fast water that takes it out
Chews
right
away
anywhere. So we've done a lot in terms of armoring the river, meaning making it so its erosion can outlast the erosion. We've also tried to learn a lot during this process. And you call yourself a hydrologist now, I think, because of all the things you've learned.
Yep. First of all, I have a driver's license, so I'm a traffic engineer, and now I've been, on the river for 2 months, so I'm a hydrologist. And I guess if I stay at a Holiday Inn Express, I can do whatever else.
Yeah, that's right. So let's talk about some of the things we've learned. What are some of the key takeaways that you've had during this process?
As a city, we've tried not just to live through this event, but to learn through it. And so what can we document and understand? It's been, a decade since we've seen high water, and it's been 40 years since we've experienced really high water. And so there's not a lot of memories and great data from some of those previous events. And so you go 40 years and you wonder, well, what was it like, and what could we have experienced? And of course, technology's changed a lot. It's a lot easier to get pictures and data like we've got. So we've got pictures of water at every flow rate at every bridge, so we know what's the capacity of these bridges. We've got a lot of drone footage, so we know when the water gets to this height, this is what it's going to look like in these low-lying areas. We've surveyed points along the river, so when we got to our highest water, we knew when that high water would be. Monday night, I guess it would be Monday morning, and Tuesday mornings, and we went out and actually did GPS survey points on all those high water marks, so we know where 2,300 cubic feet per second will be along the river at different points, and how the river then plays down.
Yeah, I think we have a picture of that, at least part of the area, kind of by the sports park area, that you can, that we have those data points.
Yep, this is great learning, and of course we've got more up the river, but this kind of contains an area where the residents are familiar around the sports park, West Park Drive, and this is great information. So now we know what 2,300 cubic feet looks like in the elevations and topography of today, which this area was significantly different 40 years ago. And so it's good to have this more current data. So we've really tried to learn through it instead of just live through it.
I think that's great, and I think most of the residents that have participated, whether filling sandbags or living along the river, have learned some things as well.
Absolutely, and one of the remarkable things that we've got is this stuff right here, the videos that Channel 17 has made. We've got some great historical pieces about the efforts this year and how things were done. It'll be easy for us to replicate it in 5, 10, even 20 years because we've got video footage now of everything that we've done.
So we're pretty confident, based on all these tools and all the data, that the levels we see now are just going to go down from here. So we are starting to pull sandbags already.
Yep.
Tell us about the sandbag plan and what it means for residents who maybe want that sand or are going to see the work that's happening.
Yeah, there are 2 or 3 elements to the plan, and for this forum we'll focus on the community area. We've already had some communications with the residents that have sandbags in their backyard. We'll communicate directly with them on what the plan is, but for the public at large, there is an interest and an opportunity for you to have some of the sand. We don't need it for city functions. And there are some sandbags that did hold back water. That is what the state would classify as contaminated sandbags, so we'll dispose of those. But the sandbags that didn't touch any water, that's good sand and it's available to the public. So we've got some sandbag opportunities where you can come and pick up some sandbags. They weigh 20 or 25 to 35 pounds each, depending on how they were filled. And they're in bags, so pretty easy to move.
Right.
And on June 2nd and June 3rd, so that's a Friday and a Saturday, a week from today, sandbags at the Canyon View Park. So we invite you to check out our social media channels this week. And certainly Monday, Tuesday of next week, we'll put out that information. You can show up, and there will be people along the park and along the trail to tell you where to go and what to get. There should be enough sandbags for the demand that we've measured. We've got some surveys out there, so if you want to tell us that you're interested in it, you want a lot, that'll help us to know how much sand is wanted. But right now, we probably have 40% of the sand that we have out there has been spoken for. So if there are people that want more sandbags, there will be an opportunity. June 2nd, June 3rd, Canyon View Park in the evening on June 2nd, and pretty much 8 to 5 on Saturday the 3rd.
Yeah, we'll have that information on our social media and on SpanishFork.org/flood. So look for that. And you're also welcome to text us if you have questions about the sand or really about anything at 801-804-4500. And we man that text line during business hours. But we'll try to get all those questions answered.
Yeah, probably just piggybacking off of that, Nick, if you have questions about it, you wonder, just send us a note. And somebody can get back to you and get you the information. And in the end, this is sand that we bought as a community, and the community's need is no longer, and it's a lot of sand. Certain types of sand are excellent for certain places, and this sand isn't quite there. You know, we put sand in our reservoir, and people think, well, just put it there. This is a really fine sand, and that's a really windy space. So if we put it there, it'll just end up at the gun club. And so it doesn't quite work in all settings for us. And so the places that we know we can use it, we'll use it. But we have more than those needs are. So this is a great opportunity to make it a community win. And we've also reached out to other communities that their story is different. Their melt is still going on. They're worried. And we've been able to coordinate with anybody that needs it and feel confident that those needs are met. And now we have excess and we can make it available.
And we don't want you to dump it back in the river.
Oh, yeah.
We took a lot of sand out of the river.
Yeah, we've spent 2 months getting this stuff out of the river. Please don't put it back.
But take it and use it in sandboxes or your yard or whatever it may be. If we take it to the transfer station, it's an expense just for the community that we take, and so we'd rather put it to good use in your yards and homes and areas. So look for that information. Take as much sand and sandbags as you need at the right time from the right places, and we'll get those off the trail, and we'll have some trail closures with that. That'll again will be on our website as well. But I think this is it. There's not a lot else to say other than a huge thank you.
Yeah.
I think thank you to all of our crews. They've worked long and hard since we saw the historic snowpack coming. and they've done a lot in the river to prepare for this. And then the community response, I think, for both of us was just overwhelming and incredible.
Yeah,
So-
we live in an amazing community, and when we sounded the alarm, we believed, we hoped that we'd have a response, that would be adequate and capable, and we were wonderfully overwhelmed by the response. And I think as a community member, as I go around and interact with people and hear their comments, there's a lot of joy at being able to serve together, a lot of excitement, a lot of good memories, a lot of happiness, and I think that's a good thing that brings us together as a community. So really, really neat that we could come together and that our story is a good one. And I think we're really grateful for that.
And I think we can keep it a good one as long as we stay out of the river.
Yeah. You'll hear the mayor say that a lot. He's really worried that we have the possibility of having that tragedy. And so anywhere I'm around the mayor and he's talking about this, celebrating the success, the amazing work of our community, but then sounding that alarm of please keep your kids out, especially like he said, school's out now, and we've got to be vigilant for at least a few more weeks.
Best sign is the river will get clear again.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best time to get back in it and play.
Yep.
So, Seth, this is it. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
We're not really going anywhere. We're just not doing these videos anymore. But just thank you. Thanks, Nick, for your work. It's been great to have consistent messages. But again, thank you to the community.
Okay, and I want to thank SF17 for helping put this together and making it possible for us to communicate this way. So thank you to them. Thanks to each of you for being a part of this process and learning and growing with us. And we don't know what the next thing will be, but we'll see you then when we take on the next thing. So thanks, Spanish Fork.